Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tuesday evening meeting of the Fairfield Golden Speakers Toastmasters Club.
Some friends told me, Centauria told me, Prana, and yeah, I could see on Facebook also. So the purpose of me being here is to just, today I want to be an observer and see how things go, and maybe I would like to become a part of it, because I want to improve my communication skills and be a part of this group and contribute some of my thoughts.
Thank you. If you may notice that after every speaker we applaud, and we just applauded for you, so it's something to get used to during the meeting.
Thank you.
The purpose of the mission of this club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. And now, wait, one more thing. If you have a phone, please turn it off at this time. Make sure it's not on vibrate mode. Turn it into silent mode. Don't even put it on stun mode, just silent. We are known as Toastmasters, and there's a role in the meeting called Toastmaster, and that person is the master of ceremonies, moves the meeting along. And it's my great pleasure to introduce our Toastmaster for this evening, Centauria Rush.
Good evening, guests, fellow Toastmasters, and viewers at home. Tonight I will be the Toastmaster, and my job as Toastmaster is to facilitate the meeting. First, we will go through the different roles of our Toastmaster group, and I would like to start with our timer, who is Frazier.
So I'll be timing all the speeches. The prepared speech will be 5 to 7 minutes. Tonight we won't have any, but we'll have an icebreaker, which is 4 to 6 minutes. The green light will come on 4 minutes. The yellow light 5 minutes, and the red light 6 minutes, and stay on for the duration of the speech. We also have a longer speech, which will be 10 to 15 minutes. The green light will come on at 10 minutes, the yellow light will come on at 12.5 minutes, and the red will come on at 15 minutes and stay on for the remainder of the speech. The evaluations are 3 minutes long. The green light will come on at 2 minutes. The red light at 2.5. No, the yellow light at 2.5 and the red at 3 minutes. And the table topics will be 1 to 2 minutes. The green light will come on at 1 minute. The yellow will be at 1.5. Yellow will be 1.5, and the red light will come on at 2 minutes and remain on for the rest of the speech. Okay. Yeah, that will be all.
Thank you, Fraser. Our next officer this evening will be the grammarian, and our grammarian tonight is Orion.
I'm the grammarian, so I look for exceptional uses of language in people's speeches. I also introduce a word that people may or may not use very often, and the word tonight is dubious. So that means hesitating or doubting, not to be relied upon. And I don't know if you can read the sentence I wrote. My handwriting is rather dubious. But I said, due to their failed business merger, his relationship with his partner was dubious. So, thank you.
Our next officer is our all counter. Our all counter tonight will be Art.
My role at Awe Counter is to notice the words of dubious value that don't contribute any meaning but take up space, usually while we're thinking of the next thing to say. And there is one. I'll be noting words such as like, so, but, and other combinations that may be personal or unique to you, and I'll give a brief report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Art. Our general evaluator for this evening is Emery. And our greeter and joke master will be Marco. The theme for this evening is selfless service. The quote of the day is, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Just something to keep in mind for the rest of the evening. We will start with our prepared speeches for this evening. I would like to welcome to the front Marco, who will be evaluating Leslie.
Thank you. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home. I have a pleasure introducing Leslie Hollis. Tonight she's gonna give us her first speech, icebreaker speech, where we will actually hear a little bit about a little more about herself. But I will give you some information. She moved to the Fairfield last year, and she worked as a coordinator of Fairfield Makerspace. And also, she have a MFA in studio and art. She's here to amaze us with her story and her experience. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home. Icebreaker speech. Well, the title for my speech is "Who is Metal Chick?" And I chose that title because it's part of my email address. And when I chose that email address, it was when Gmail was new. I was just out of school. I thought it was clever. I was a metalsmith. I was a girl, a chick. And I had to stick a number at the end because someone else who was equally clever had already taken that name. And I chose 108 because I had just started meditating, like a Zen practice. And I had to explain that over and over again. And then people would ask me, "Oh, are you in a band?" And I always wanted to say, "I am. I'm the lead guitar." But I would go into my long spiel about metalsmithing and watch them kind of blank out and then, fade away if we were at a party. So I brought some visual aids because metalsmith doesn't always make sense to people. What does that mean? Do I make horseshoes? What do I do? Am I a jeweler? So these are some things that I've made. This is copper and nickel. This is a necklace. So metalsmiths hone metal. They work with metal. They heat it up and pound it and change its shape. And so that made me think about, who am I? Or what am I doing? So metalsmithing is something I do, but the honing of the metal is a process I feel like myself that I'm going through. Getting heated up, getting in trouble, whatever, forging myself down, trying to improve. so I feel like Toastmasters is going to help me on that journey, to help me understand who I am, to help me forge myself, to help me hone myself into a better person, a better speaker, a better listener. And there's no light, so I'm not really sure what time I'm at. So I'm going to hopefully
Go for green.
go for green. Oh,
Up to 4 minutes.
okay. So clearly, I need some more forging here to understand this process. I came here to Fairfield as a seeker, and also to bring that knowledge of metalsmithing with me. So that's what I'm doing at the Makerspace. And I'm going to share that knowledge with people there and teach them how to work with metal, and teach them how that can work with their lives, and give them more skills to help them expand who they are. Thank you.
This is for your own notes.
Oh.
Thank you, Leslie. Fraser, can we have 2 minutes to evaluate the speech? If you're new, you just take this sheet, you can write little comments that you liked about the speech. Thank you. Okay. Our next speaker tonight is Jean. Really looking forward to that. And her evaluator for this evening will be Will. Thank
Thank you, Santoria. Always a pleasure to be up here, even if only briefly. But now I'm going to do what Jean's about to do here in just a minute, which is get to the point. She is doing project number 3, which is to have a general and specific purpose. A general purpose, for those of you that may be hazy on the concept, is to inform, persuade, entertain, or inspire. I almost wanted to say interrogate, but that's a different process. A specific purpose is what you want the audience to do after listening to the speech. So one sets them up, the other one drives them to action. Her objectives are to select a speech topic and determine its general and specific purposes. To organize that speech in a manner that best achieves that purpose, and to ensure that her beginning, body, and conclusion reinforce those purposes. Finally, Jean will effortlessly project sincerity and conviction and control whatever nervousness she may have deep inside somewhere. Ordinarily, this project is about 5 to 7 minutes, but this one will be a little bit longer. I will remind the timer, Mr. Timer, that this speech is abnormal. It's going to be 10, 12:30, and 15. Jean's a Toastmaster. She loves to talk. Jean Symington Craig is a 10-year member of Golden Speakers Toastmasters and is a distinguished Toastmaster, what we call a DTM, the highest achievement level that Toastmasters International awards. At Golden Speakers, she has been president, not once, but twice, most recently last year, and has served in a variety of officer positions. She is the Toastmaster Club Liaison and a member of Conscious Communicators Toastmasters Club at the Iowa State Penitentiary Maximum Security Unit in Fort Madison, which she finds very rewarding. Tonight, Jean is helping the club to conduct its annual officer selection process for the 2017-2018 Toastmaster year. This nominating committee, which Jean chairs, will prepare a recommended slate of candidates, and the club will vote on May 30th. But before all that, we have tonight. The title of Jean's speech is Becoming an Officer. Please join me in warmly welcoming Jean Symington Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. A leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves. So fellow Toastmasters and honored guests and viewers at home, that quote is by Lao Tzu. I want to ask how many of you who are members joined because you wanted to be a better leader? Now, this is not something you have to raise your hand on, but yeah, so we had a couple, we had several. That's great. I was not aware that Toastmasters had a leadership program. When I started, I was here to become a better speaker. But Toastmasters is a leadership program, and the tagline for it is Toastmasters, where leaders are made. Communication is a tool that leaders use. Tonight, we're going to be starting our officer selection process. This happens every year in May. I'd like to acknowledge just quickly, we don't have everyone here, the officers that have been here for this 2016, 2017 years. Could you guys rise? We have Rick Starr as president. We have Will Burns as vice president of education. Ryan Pond-Miller was our vice president of membership. Vice president of PR is Art, that's public relations. We have our secretary, Andal Krishna, who is heading off to India. Our treasurer has been Emery Styron. And doing double duty as our sergeant at arms has also been Rick Starr. So let's give him a quick round of applause. Okay? You guys can sit. Okay. So what I'd like to do tonight is I'd like to talk about what the roles are and then why you would be excited about them and why we're going to take that step forward. You all should have gotten a handout. This is your preference sheet. This is the roles in bullet point form. I'm just going to read through them. President, he's the CEO, or he or she oversees the Distinguished Club Program completion. He schedules and presides over the executive committee meeting that we have once a month, and he promotes the education and leadership goals. Secondly, our Vice President of Education. This is a really important role. Plans the successful club meetings by scheduling the speakers and the roles. The matrix that you have here, the agenda every week, that comes out of our Vice President of Education. Really supports the education and leadership program that way. Our Vice President of Membership talks to new prospective guests, prospective members, guests, gives them applications, helps them to understand what's involved with getting into Toastmasters, collects applications and money. Also, in our club, we have the Vice President of Membership handle the mentor program. So when you join Toastmasters, you are also getting a mentor to help guide you in your first several projects. I sent out an email to all the members with some homework. I'm not going to embarrass you and ask you how many did that, but if you haven't done that, I'm going to suggest you go back and look at that quickly. It'll take you 5 minutes. It also is the outline of the officer roles. Vice President of Public Relations, just like it sounds, get the word out about Toastmasters in a variety of ways. The secretary, pretty much we have the secretary taking the minutes at our executive meetings and handing those out to the officers. Treasurer collects dues, submits them online, also submits applications online, gives a budget to the officers from time to time, keeps us with the checkbook and the bank clear. Also sends out a member roster. You've seen those come out, and keeps us that way. The Sergeant at Arms, it's all about what's happening here in the room. It's making sure that we've got all of our pieces, making sure that our boxes have our ribbons filled and our forms filled. It's kind of the facilities manager. All of these jobs have things that are done both outside the meeting and inside the meeting. I've given you a little bit of a flavor of both. So I want to now move into some of the responses that people give on, well, when they're asked to be an officer. These are typical. So first is, Well, I don't know how to do that. I have no idea how to do that. So here's the answer to that. Nobody knows how to do their jobs when they first start. That's number one. Secondly, we have officer manuals that you get. Toastmasters sends it, so it's free, and you get that. So you have that going into your session. We also have mentors. Everyone who's been an officer before is there to mentor you in your position as you go forward, as you find your legs in your position. We also have a semi-annual training that's done by the division, which is another level higher up, and you go twice a year. That is like a road trip. So you get to have fun with your fellow officers, you go up, you meet other Toastmasters, and you learn more about your role. That is pretty much how it runs. So by the end of the year, just when you have it all down, it's time to change over, but that's okay, because you've learned. Another response is, I don't have the time. Does anyone feel like that? I do not have the time. That's the way I felt. Are you I'm wanting to use a word here. Are you kidding me? Okay, well, the thing about Toastmasters is for volunteers. We're all volunteers, we're all busy. Life is hectic for everyone, and so Toastmasters makes these roles efficient and easy to be done. Okay, so we just don't worry about the time. They all can be done in the time that people have. Secondly, I've talked about the twice a year training, so that's no big deal. Twice a year you can get out of town. We also have some emails that we send out from in between our meetings, just sometimes to sort things out. So that's not a big deal, and we have our own separate officer list. It's like anything, as you get better at things, you get more efficient. So the third response that we get is, can't somebody else do it? Okay, deep in your little heart of hearts, aren't you thinking that? I mean, doesn't that thought cross your mind? There's a little bit of a whining there. These are all rather dubious questions anyway, but can't somebody else do it? Well, here's the thing. It's the principle of many hands make light work. So that's what we do. We have officers, they rotate in, they rotate out, and that way nobody gets burnt out. If you've ever been burnt out, it's not a happy experience. It's too heavy, life is no more fun. So that's what we do. It's when we have 20 members in a club, we have 7 officers, you can expect to be an officer at least minimum every 3 years. Could be every 2 years. You may like it and want to keep going up and moving up and trying different officerships, but that's just the math. Okay. All right, so I want to talk about why. Why do you want to be an officer? I'm not going to tell you all the fun stuff that we do because, we're on TV and everything, but we'll talk about that later. No, the reason that you want to be an officer, there's 2. I like to think of it as responsibility and opportunity. Responsibility. You did promise in your Toastmaster promise to serve as an officer when asked. I know that may come as a shock to you, but that is there, and so you have a duty and an obligation to follow that in addition to all the other things I've said. You just said you would. Okay. If you enjoy the club, which I think I see a lot of smiles often when you're not trying to crawl your way out of the door, but if you enjoy the club, you have an obligation to support it. That's just the way it is. So that's what officers do. But now switching from obligation, responsibility, I'm going to switch over to opportunity, because really, isn't it more fun to think about what are you going to get out of it and how you could grow as opposed to the duty? I mean, it's good to have duty and know that it's your duty. I was raised with a father who felt that if you do your duty and you don't like it, you get more points than if you do your duty and you like it. because somehow being miserable gets more points. It took me many, many years to get that sorted out. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we can talk about the opportunities. I'm always saying that Toastmasters people in general are doing things in groups. There are many, many opportunities to get better at group dynamics, learn how to influence people, learn how to, not in a Machiavellian way, but just in a way that helps move a group along to achieve goals. Those are happening everywhere, work, churches, civic organizations, all kinds of places. So that's a reason to practice. The second reason is it's very fulfilling to help people. The giving muscle. I always talk about muscles. When you're an officer, you know you're supporting the club, you're helping new members, existing members to keep growing, and there's a fulfillment there because you are helping to make that happen. It's a giving muscle that gets worked out. It's also an honor to serve as an officer of this club. This club has once again earned this first to 10 in the District 19 Toastmaster program, the DCP, the Distinguished Club Program. We've earned this again. We were first to get this is out of 90 plus clubs in the district. So we are a time-honored and very distinguished club in the group, and being an officer of this club is a privilege. Just saying. But the last reason, and this is the one that I think I get even a little bit more keyed up on, is it's the what's in it for me really particularly, and it has to do with backbone and confidence. It's just self-confidence. So what happens when you're an officer of this club is, and I don't know how it works exactly, it's just kind of a magical thing, but you start standing taller, your head is up higher on your shoulders, your eyes are sparkling, you have self-confidence. And that self-confidence is transferable to everything else that you're doing. It's just a wonderful package to be carrying with you. So to me, that is the biggest reason to be an officer, is to develop that internal structural self-confidence that you take wherever you go. Tonight, all of these preference sheets here, what we want you to do is to indicate, obviously put your name on it. I don't know your handwritings yet. So put your name on this, and then you indicate 1, 2, 3, your order of preference of which officer position you would like to be considered for. Your name. Yeah. As opposed to somebody else's name. Okay, yes. You put your name, and then I want to collect those before you leave tonight. And any comments that you may have as well. If you have some comments in there, that would be great too. I'm the chairman of the nominating committee. We'll be looking at these, we'll be sorting it and doing our cogitations on it, and then we'll come up with a slate that we think will be good, that will be incorporating people's desires, strengths. We have to think about what's good for the club, and then we'll be off and running. And we'll have our vote on May 30th, and then our new slate of officers will be ready to take kind of a shadow month in June, which is the last month of the year, mirroring along with the officers that we have, coming to the officer meeting and just starting to get that, that baton handoff that happens when, in a relay. Has anybody run relays before? I sound like I did. I haven't, but I've watched them. Those guys, like they're running, and so there's a point where 2 of them are running. Well, that's what we'll be doing. So, I think that's it. Is there any questions? I have a yellow light on, a red light yet. Any questions? Quickly. Are you all stupefied? Okay, yes.
To fill out the forms now?
Just somewhere between now and the end of the evening. I realize you may want to think about it a little bit, but I do want something tonight. So this is not go home and think about it. This is table topics, do it now. Yes.
I would just add a comment that as much as I've silently groused about the duties as an officer in my 2 years, everything you say is true. It does make you feel good, it does build your confidence, and it builds your understanding of Toastmasters and how the club works. So I urge you to step forward and try it, even if you, like me, think, I don't want to do this.
Yes.
You won't really regret it. You'll find the time.
Thank you, Emery, that's really good. And I've got the red light, so I'm gonna say, all right, I'm going to, thank you. Okay.
We're evaluating this like,
Yeah, project 3.
I see. Thank you, Jean. May I have 2 minutes to evaluate the speech? Fraser, of the speakers this evening, who qualified?
Non-qualified.
How, out of curiosity, Leslie, how far down was she? in terms of-
Oh, she was.
She had 30 seconds?
She did it in 3 minutes, 15 seconds. 3 minutes.
And what was mine?
15 minutes, 45 seconds.
Thank
I shouldn't have taken that, I should, yeah.
Yeah, that was,
Audience questions will blow it every time.
So, there will be no voting for speaker this evening. That will be. Well, we'll let that be a lesson in time management. Okay. The next section of today's meeting, I would like to call Emery, our general evaluator.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, and good evening, guests, viewers at home, and fellow Toastmasters. I'm the general evaluator, and at this part of the meeting, it's simply my job to introduce the evaluators. Later on, I'll be evaluating them and perhaps making a general comment on the meeting. I would like to say first, though, that all of us, I direct this to our guests and our icebreaker speaker especially, but almost all of us, if not all of us, are dubious about our speaking abilities as we begin Toastmasters. But over time, we do develop confidence. So I'd like to now call our first evaluator, Marco, to come forward. He'll be evaluating.
Fellow Toastmasters, guests and viewers at home, and Leslie. As well as your first icebreaker speech, this is my first time evaluating anything. So this is my icebreaker in evaluation. Let's see, objectives for the trouble here. Objectives were to begin speaking before an audience, to discover speaking skills you already have and skills that need some attention. Okay, you started pretty well. I really enjoy how you connected with the audience. Immediately you started with the story, you told the title. You had a visual aid that was so amazing. From the first speech you gave, you started immediately showing audience what are you doing and what is something that is meaningful to you. You have a really great hand movement. I liked how you, I guess, gesticulated with your hands while you were talking. It's really synchronized what you did. It was a really good introduction about you. You said you came as a seeker, and that you're passionate about art and creating, how you say it, melting that brown metal, and just creating art of that. And it's my suggestion is that maybe we could hear a little bit more about your story. I'm pretty sure there is much more to be said and heard, but overall, it was really clear. The tonality, maybe the voice could be a little stronger and higher. But I think it comes with the confidence. The only suggestion I could give you is just to relax and imagine that you're talking to your friend, somebody maybe a friend that you didn't see so for a long time, and now you're reintroducing yourself again, and just telling a little bit more about yourself and where you're at in your life right now. So that's the first thing. I think the most important thing is that try to focus to be relaxed, and I think that everything else will come naturally. So, overall, thank you so much, and I know that you're gonna give some great speeches in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Good job on your evaluation icebreaker. And our next evaluator is an experienced Toastmaster to evaluate an experienced Toastmaster, Will Burns.
All right, thank you, Emery. I'm going to note here one thing right off the bat, which is that in my evaluation guide, 5 is excellent, 1 needs improvement, 4 is above average for the speaker's experience level. And that's kind of tough for Jean because really she's doing a competent communicator speech, and she's a very experienced speaker. So above average for her, I don't know. That's almost beyond excellent. That's like a 6. So I'm gonna have basically excellent, above average, satisfactory, and below that. First off, was the general purpose of the speech clear? Yes, I feel like it was very clear. To me, I felt like it was kind of a shared, persuade, inspire. The informative nature of it wasn't, it was there, but really, at the end of the day, we're trying to persuade and inspire, and those two were kind of in equal measure, to my mind. The next question was the specific purpose of the speech clear? Let me ask you all a question. What do you all think the specific purpose of the speech was tonight? Anybody want to sound it out? Felt the form. Yeah. Did I hear something over here as well? Marco, what'd you have?
No, I was thinking the same. Inspire us to
Inspire.
Get the roles.
Inspire to get roles. Yeah.
And you were inspired.
Yeah, I of course am, have the dubious distinction of being fairly verbose. I was saying to remove member obstacles to being ready and willing to serve as an officer. Fancy, but yeah, you guys basically covered it there, or better. And it's actually kind of tough to really nail down a specific purpose sometimes for a speech. So that was good for me, having done this for a while, to go back and think, what is the specific reason she was up there precisely? I felt like her organization and main points really drove right into supporting her purposes. She dove right into inspiring us with a powerful quote, talked about the common concerns we'd have. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time. I don't know what I'd even do as an officer, if I can even manage it. And she addressed the why as well, and that it's our responsibility and it's our opportunity. Let me ask you a question. How many of you feel like the speaker achieved the specific purpose? Show of hands. Okay. That'll work in Jean's favor. Hopefully you'll check it out. Certainly, I think Jean did a great job tonight of reminding us that we may be voluntold to actually be an officer, but to at least remove some of this pain and fear so that we can just have our own sort of hand on the wheel, so to speak. Jean, the only suggestion I have for you was just, you open the floor up for questions, and I love that. my suggestion would be perhaps to do it a little earlier in your speech so you can control it, and then if it ends up running over, you can do your end and then cut it off. But all in all, great speech, and looking forward to more.
Thank you, Will. Okay, at this point, I'd like to call our table topics master, Manoli, to lead us in the impromptu speaking session of the meeting. You may tell you this, but our guests are welcome to participate.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home. This is one of the most exciting parts of this evening's meeting because we get to use our creative skills that we've developed in Toastmasters as we begin the impromptu speaking. So the speeches this evening will be between 1.5 to 2 minutes, I believe. And we should use the word of, it would be good to use the word of the day that Ryan dubiously wrote on the board. And the theme for this evening is selfless service. So would anybody feel, please come on up.
Speeches are between 1 and 2.
1 and 2 minutes. Many cultures and religions encourage people to engage in acts of selfless service, as they say that there's many rewards from these actions. Why do you think selfless service is important?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, honored guest, fellow Toastmasters, and viewers at home. I think service, selfless service, is the highest form of service that you can render. We all know that we do a favor for someone and sometimes we expect something in return. We're nice to someone, and if someone isn't nice to us, we're kind of peeved at them. But I like the idea of paying it forward. Someone does something to you, for you, and they don't expect anything in return, and you're not obligated in any way to do something nice for them. But what you are obligated to do is do something nice for someone else. It could be a stranger, it could be someone who has a very tenuous connection to you. I'll give you a real life example of this. Some people say I'm a forgetful, absent-minded person. I don't know if that's true, but over the past few years, I've lost my wallet maybe 12 times.
Wow.
Every single time I've lost it, I've either gone to the place where I lost it and it was there, or sometimes, even before I've lost it, someone says, I found your wallet. There was never a penny missing from it. There was never a credit card missing from it. And now I don't even worry anymore because I know I don't have it. It's somewhere. Someone's going to call me. So this is an example of selfless service. People return my wallet and I go out of my way to be kind to people, to do favors for people. This is in my self-interest because I know I'm going to lose my wallet again and somebody's going to return it. Thank you.
Do you have any other, Ty, who would like to go? What is your definition of selfless service, and if it can be measured, like a profits of a business, how do you think self-service can be measured? selfless service.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. Selfless service is a really beautiful concept that can be measured by so many different means. I believe that looking at how many people's lives your service has touched is one factor. Looking at the feeling of satisfaction that the individuals who perform those acts get is another. And the third is the outlook that the whole community feels from what you're doing. And how can you describe it? I believe that we need to looking at different types of ways that we can improve our world, whether it's through means of helping out someone who may be feeling hungry, somebody who needs an opportunity with their education, that just finding as much help as possible for people who need help and have the opportunity to strive forward so that they can get to the level that they want to reach their goals is very important. Reaching the maximum number of people for that potential is important as factor one. For factor two, I believe that it's really important to look after you've done your task, or you've done your duty, you've done what you felt is volunteering. As Marco says, well, you don't want to live life with regrets. And when you feel that you've done something meaningful, you can always look back and really find it soothing in your heart, whether it's, at middle age, whether it's now, any time in your life. It's important to look back, reflect on your volunteer service, importantly. And number three, it's important that people do not have such a dubious outlook on what you have done in a cynical way, but that you really meant to perform good acts of service for the rest of humanity. Thank you.
Do we have one more? Through history, there have always been great leaders who have sacrificed selflessly, devoted their services to mankind. Is there anyone in history or from your personal life that has inspired you?
Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home. There's many leaders who put their life on the line to we enjoy the freedom and comfort that we have today. And many, many inspiring leaders. And recently, that first thing that came to my mind when you asked me this question is actually Nelson Mandela. After 17 years of his imprisonment, he was offered to be released to accept the rules and to accept the regulation, what they were offering him, and they will let him go. And nobody will judge him because it was 17 years in the prison. He will say, you served your big part of your life in a prison, and nobody will say, you sold out or you bad. But he didn't want to give up. He was staying for what he was believing, and he was, even though he was in prison, maybe by the bars, but he was free in his mind and his heart. And he knew in his heart that he will go if he had to all the way to the end because he was standing for what he was believing. And I always admire people who stand for what they believe, starting Martin Luther King Jr. or Abraham Lincoln and many other people who actually create some lasting change on this planet. And there's many of them. But yeah, Nelson Mandela is the one who struck me first, because it was just fascinating for me that you have a offer. I know I relate to my own life when I was fasting, and I will offer myself to cut my fast earlier, and I know I will enjoy, and I know how challenging and how must be to have that freedom and something that you were craving all the time, but you still hold yourself for it because of your principles, because of the word you said to yourself, and because other people believe in you. So,
Do we have time for more, or are we maxed out? More? Would you like to look? What would the world be like if everyone was devoted to selfless service?
Like many Americans, I love certain parts of pop culture, particularly Star Trek. And a concept, there's many things you can love about Star Trek. The love of science, the love of exploration, the many different creatures and stories that are told from week to week or from film to film. But something recently I came across was that many people tuned in because they had this feeling of watching an organization, whether it be the Federation, where they're surrounded by people that are motivated by the best ideals. They cast aside dubious concepts like greed, ambition, avarice, and instead they embrace progress, science, humanity. The opportunity to work alongside people without fear of being stabbed in the back, betrayed, lied to, is something that I think appeals to all of us, despite the fact that so many of us are involved in organizations where this happens. So I don't know. I mean, it's very easy, I guess, for me to say, well, it's these noble science fiction watchers and viewers, and it's that are being held down by these vile corporate types that pull everybody down. I don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot of it that has to do with that our best desires are kind of held down, and that we try to be the best people we can, and oftentimes we fail, and that makes us human. But that when we do reach beyond our most basic desires, passions, fears, and do something greater, that is something beautiful, that's something elevating, transcendent. I think we all can do more in some of the service. Thank you.
All right, Fraser, will you let us know which of the table topic speakers qualified?
All qualified.
All qualified. So please take the time to vote for the table topic speaker. Best table topic speaker. And Fraser, would you please read the names of the contestants?
Contestant Krista, Dennis, Marco, Wilbert, with the 4 speakers.
Thank you. To call up Dan Craig to evaluate the table topic.
Thank you, Madam Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. We had 4 speakers tonight, and I'm going to run through quickly, try to point out a couple of things that each one did well, maybe give a suggestion. Our first speaker was Rick. He did a whole lot of things well. It was really a very nicely done talk. The two things that I liked the best were that he incorporated stage movement. He gracefully moved from place to place on the stage with purpose. And I liked his real life example. The wallet was a nice story. And good logic, you know, you've got to keep doing things nice for people if you're going to lose your wallet that often. The one suggestion I've got for Rick is just to take a little time at the beginning to organize. You gave an awesome talk. Maybe it could have been even more awesome. Awesomer. Second speaker was Dennis. He greeted the audience very good. He answered the question directly, which is always a plus. The two things that I wrote down that I liked the best for Dennis in his talk was gestures, very nice natural gestures, and good eye contact. A lot of us do keep eye contact with the audience, but we tend to go like this. Dennis is a little better at focusing on the person as he gives a point, so that's a plus. I think the possible suggestion for you is use of the stage. A couple of times you said point 1, 2, 3, so that would lend itself very nicely to point 1, point 2, point 3. Marco was the third speaker. I particularly liked the example he came up with. Mandela is maybe one of the best examples of selfless service that you could come up with. I noted that you had good eye contact. The one thing that I would suggest for you is incorporate some natural gestures. You're like me, you sometimes kind of do this and just hang out. I saw a little bit of this. But if you could do this, then the audience is drawn in a little more. And finally, Will, let's get out the unfortunate suggestion first. You didn't greet the audience. But he was just too excited about Star Trek. He had to jump right in. And I thought it was a beautifully developed example to illustrate the angle that he wanted to take on the question. So that was very well done. And I thought you also had a very strong conclusion. Very nice. And now it's back to our general evaluator. And Mr. Timer, can you tell us which evaluators qualified?
All qualified.
All qualified, and they are?
Oh, they are Marco, Will, and Dan Craig.
Okay. Please vote for your best evaluator. Nicely. So now we'll call for our reports from our role players. Let's start with the timer's report. Frazier?
Okay. Leslie was 3 minutes 15 seconds. Jean was 15 minutes 45 seconds. On the table topic, Rick was 2 minutes 5 seconds. Dennis 2 minutes 27 seconds. Marco 2 minutes 11 seconds, and Will 2 minutes 12 seconds. On the evaluators, Marco was 2 minutes 45 seconds. Will Burns 3 minutes 24 seconds, and Dan Craig 3 minutes 90 seconds. Yep, that's all.
Thank you. Grammarian, Orion.
We had 6 people using the word dubious: Art, Jean, Emery, Manoli, Denise, and Will. And we had some exceptional language tonight. One was, I do want something tonight, was one. Over the past few years, I've lost my wallet a dozen times. and we create something beautiful, something elevating, and something transcendent.
And all counters report from Art.
So Kashif, 2 ahs and an Fraser, 2 ahs, 5 ums. Me, 1 and. Marco, 6 ahs, 5 ums, a so, an and. Leslie, an ah, an 3 ands. Will, 4 ahs, 2 ums, and a burst of you knows, all right within the same minute. Jean, 2 so's and a but. Santoria, 1 Emery, clean. Minoli, 2 ands. Rick, clean. Denise, a you know, and Dan, an and.
And loosen up those laughter muscles. Here comes our joke master, Marco.
So there it is. 4 ladies on a highway in their car, and they're driving really slowly, and they're slowing the traffic down. People are on their own sirens, and the state police coming, and then they ask, "What is going on? Why you driving so slowly? What's going on?" And they said, "We are it's the speed limit is 5 miles per hour." He said, "That's not a speed limit. This is a route." Number 5 highway, and there was 2 ladies in the back seat, staying like this, and he didn't know what's going on. Why did they move it and didn't say anything? And he said, "What is going on? What is wrong with these 2 ladies in the back?" we just came from the route 155. I'm still learning about
You got a lot of laughs. I think you're doing fine. Okay, my turn to offer a few comments on the evaluators and the meeting. Marco's first evaluation, that was an apt description, an icebreaker of evaluation, and I remember how I was probably more scared by that than the icebreaker speech itself. So you did very well for your first evaluation. Important to start with praise, finish with praise, not unearned praise, but genuine praise. You did that. I would have strengthened it even. You used the term, you did pretty well. I would have just said you did well. You noted her visual aids, you praised her hand movements. All good. My suggestion would be that you address the whole audience. You spoke mostly to Leslie, and we could have felt left out. So it's just something to remember going forward. Will's enthusiasm is probably his strongest asset. He just exudes enthusiasm. He has an interesting job evaluating as advanced a speaker as Jean is, and speaking from a fairly low-level manual speech. But he did that well and honed in on the specific purpose and the general purpose. And he had a good suggestion for Jean to, if you're going to open the floor to suggestions, to do it earlier where you have time to recover from people like me who ruin your speech. I really don't have a suggestion for you, Will. You did that very well. Dan's evaluation of table topic speakers, good throughout. You listened very carefully, and it shows, and you noted specific good points and gave suggestions for improvement, including demonstrating those suggestions, such as the wide gestures. I would suggest that you take your own advice and do more grand gestures in your own speaking. All in all, a very good meeting, and I look forward to more of them. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Toastmasters.
There's no words. We don't have to, Okay, now for the best part of the meeting, the award ceremony. And now, our best speaker, fortunately, they tied. But for next time, let's just all be aware of time. I know I have a lot of trouble with time myself. I usually am disqualified for time. So we'll move on to our table topics winner for this evening. Now, this is my favorite award because I bet on table topics like I do horses. So tonight I would have made a lot of money. The table topics winner for tonight is Wilbur.
One time there's no ribbon.
Do you want to do a photo art?
Wake up.
You can
We got a ribbon?
No,
No
it's
ribbon.
No ribbon. Ribbonless.
It's on the
award
inside.
ceremony.
shake hands, shake hands,
It's all virtual.
shake hands, yeah, there you go.
All right. That looks very good.
Thank you.
Y'all know why I do these photographs?
You can give a speech on
Finally, our best evaluator for this evening, let's do a little drum roll, is Dan.
Hey!
You did a great
Why don't I get a ribbon?
job. Because in here. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn over the remainder of the meeting to our president, Rick Starr.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. I'd like our guests, what did you think of the meeting?
Yeah, it was a good experience to watch everybody speak, and yeah, I have a good feeling.
Good, good. Thank you for coming. Congratulations to Leslie on her icebreaker. And congratulations to Jean on a very informative and hopefully inspiring speech on becoming an officer. I'd like Jean to come up and talk a little more about this just for another minute or two, so please welcome Jean Symington Craig.
We also have to honor Marco for his icebreaker evaluation. I like icebreaker evaluation. That's good. The fallback plan, when you haven't left enough time to have question and answers, is to talk to the president and see if you can get a little more time at the end of the meeting. Because all kidding aside, it is a really important function that our club does at this time of year. And I just want to have questions be able to be asked. We did kind of run through it quickly. I was really appreciative of Emery's comments on, having been there, done that. Any questions on any of the positions? Rick. Our president, yes.
So I just have a couple of comments. I want to echo Emery, that sometimes becoming an officer, you have to get here early, and there's monthly meetings and various other things, and I'm sure we all from time to time grumble about it, but overall it's a very fulfilling, rewarding experience. Part of it is, as the table topics said, it's selfless service, it's service to the club. And Jean mentioned, well, I don't know if I can do this, but you're not only will be led by former officers during a transition period, but all the officers act as a group, act as a team. So you're never on your own. You have your fellow current officers, you have former officers if you have any questions. And that's the thing I enjoyed, it probably more than anything, is working on a team and working as part of the team. I've been an officer for different positions for about 3 years in the club, and I could just really recommend it to stretch yourself and to do selfless service. Thank you.
To echo a little bit of what Rick just said, and on a slightly different angle, one of the things I've appreciated most about serving as an officer is the opportunity to get to know 6 of my other club members much better than I would if it was meetings alone, because we work on projects together and we hammer out ideas and pros and cons of different ways of doing things, and we get to know each other much better than I have gotten to know the other officers much better than I know many of the other club members, simply because we work on stuff together, and it's been one of the pleasures of doing it, and it's the reason that I've already put my arm in the water for being vice president of PR once again. You know I want to continue working as an officer.
That whole thing that you have when you start Toastmasters and you think, well, do I have time to do this? It's that time thing. That was what I was concerned about. So I was already busy, and I remember the shock I had after, I hadn't even been here for a year. I started in May 2006, and somewhere in March, April, I was asked if I would be interested in being president of the club. And I thought, me? I mean, I'm just a newbie. I mean, there were a lot of people that were, and I just thought, yikes. But I have to say, I said I would do it. I got my ramp up. I learned. There were experienced Toastmasters to help me. And by the end of the year, I remember telling Dan I was thinking about staging a coup because I didn't want to go, because I was having so much fun. I felt like I had grown so much, and it was almost over, and I didn't want it to be over. So that is what can happen. It is a very interesting year that you have. I do want to mention just full disclosure, the once a month, we meet out here, we meet usually at 6:45 to 7:30. That's when we have our monthly executive meeting. So it's on a Tuesday, we just flow right along, and then we come over to the meeting. So we really try to keep it compact. You can get some salad bar or get some food and eat while we're doing it. We try to make that really easy. I don't think we even do that much emailing around between meetings. Actually, I think we just tend to grab each other at the meetings. If we do have to work something out, we just quick do it on the fly. But I'm just trying to be realistic about the time. It does flow pretty easily, and this club we've got it worked out how things go. So you don't have to be inventing it or figuring it out too much, because we'll help you get there. I was, making my own comment. Other questions? Because we're I just want you guys to feel good. I kind of play with you a little bit that, you know, you can't leave this room until I have your piece of paper in my hand. But I really want you to feel inspired and, you know, intrigued with taking this next step on the Toastmaster journey. And know that everyone, you know, has a little bit of trepidation when they do it. And oh, and by the way, so you do have an obligation. We want all the officers to come to the meetings. Well, that's what you do anyway as a Toastmaster member. If you have to be out of town from time to time, just like being a member, that happens too. So we all work with that. We all know we have lives around Toastmasters. So try to be flexible with that. Yeah. Is there any other things about officer in particular? The Sergeant at Arms, we do see if we can try to get you here a little sooner. So, because it does involve room setup. So Sergeant at Arms, usually by 7:30, you ought to be able to be here. And then, but we all pick up afterwards and then you're done. So that's a good one. What else? If you're doing the treasurer, you got to be able to add and subtract and possibly handle a bank book. But we've got it all figured out in a little square. We can take credit cards. Woo! We're in the 21st century. We can do that. Yay! Okay, I hear wheels turning, neurons firing. Are any of those resulting in questions? It looks like we're not. Okay. What? Yeah, that would be great. Make sure you put your name on it, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
All right.
Again, thank you all for coming. Thank you, guests, for coming. Is there any more club business? I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.